To begin by introducing the panel I have here, a very distinguished lineup and a great deal of expertise on our focus subject, which is the textile industry. And I'll begin on my far right. Georg Dieners, who is the General Secretary of OEKO-TEX, or OEKO-TEX, is it? I don't know. Do you have an acronym way of...
OEKO-TEX.
OEKO-TEX, okay. George is a textile engineer, and his group helps produce and optimize processes and products very important in this industry. We then have Iwan Setiawan Lukminto, isn't it? That's it. I'm sorry, my pronunciations are not very good. Iwan is the president of PT3 Rejeki, but it's better known as Skritex, isn't it? Skritex. This is one of the largest textile companies in Southeast Asia. Then we have His Excellency Amir Hossain, who is the Minister for Industries of Bangladesh, which is one of the big textile producers in this world, as we know from many of our clothes and things we buy. And next to me here is Truong. Yes. Oh, I got it right. That's very good. Thank you very much. Who is the Chief Executive of the Vietnam National Textiles and Garment Group, which again is better known as Vinatex. Yes. Okay. So what I'm going to do is ask these gentlemen if they spend a few minutes telling me about who they are, what they do, and what their companies do, and we'll progress from there. So, George, if I can begin with you, and we will come up. So, take it away, as they say.
Thank you very much for your introduction. As I said, my name is Georg Dieners, and I'm the General Secretary of the OEKO-TEX Association. The OEKO-TEX Association have right now 18 member institutes which are professional in testing and researching textiles and leather goods. We are spread it all over the world, and I think since 1992 we are the first and right now the most famous certification system for textiles and leather goods in the world. I can say it because I think there's nobody which can perform like we do it. We are based in Zurich, in Switzerland, where we had all activities regarding product development and marketing activities, and we are acting in the name of the 18 textile and leather institutes.
Thank you. Iwan, we'd ask you now if you can tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes, my name is Iwan Lukminto. I'm the CEO of PT3 Rejeki Isman, or better known as Skritex. We are an integrated textile and garment company in Indonesia, and we employ 50,000 people, and we make from spinning, weaving, dyeing, printing, and garments. And we are focused on our integrations from upstreams. We are now making fiber plants, rayon plants, and we are focused on the sustainability for our development for our business. And today that Skritex has export up to more than 100 countries, and we have also a fashion segment and uniform segment. And uniform, we are focused on the military uniforms, defense uniforms, as well as corporate uniforms. Thanks.
Mr. Anu, now you'd like to tell us about yourselves and what and your industry in Bangladesh. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, Paul Markillie, Innovation Editor of the Economist, and the distinguished panelists. Dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here in the panel discussion on focus on the textile and garments organized in connection with the first Global Manufacturing and Industrialization Summit. At the very outset, I would like to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to the organizers for inviting me to speak during this auspicious occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, our world is becoming a closer community, and this, to a large extent, is because of the ties created by the trade and investment between the business communities of different countries. This would not have been possible without opening up the economics of the developing countries, especially within the last decade. A range of these countries now experience the most promising growth market, and Bangladesh is undoubtedly one of them. Bangladesh is a vibrant economy that has, despite the recent global economic meltdown, maintained a consistent growth rate of 6% plus very recently. Bangladesh has graduated to lower a middle income status by the ranking of the World Bank for our improved economic performance over the past decade. During the last fiscal year, we have achieved the GDP growth 7.11%, exceeding all the previous records. With a population of 160 million plus, Bangladesh booms of an efficient and entrepreneur workforce that is changing the profit profile of the economy. As a result, total volume of export earning of Bangladesh is increasing every year, and Bangladesh economy is growing fast in line with our rising economics of emerging Asia under the visionary leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, Her Excellency Sheikh Hasina. In order to materialize the target of transforming Bangladesh into a middle-income country by 2021 and a developed country by the year 2041, we have set goals and targets with a view to attaining the GDP growth around 8% per annum. As a result, investment and industrial development activities in booming, which leads the industry sector, grow 10.10%, and the GDP size stands 220 billion. In the fiscal year 2009 to 10, the total export earning Bangladesh was $16 billion. It reached to the amount US $34 billion during the fiscal year 2015 and 16. And textile and clothing sector was the main source of this export earning. At present, Bangladesh is the second largest exporter of RMG in the global market. The rise of exports in by duty waiver facility to the EU market and relaxation of rules of origin. Under the generalized system of preference, the Eurozone for the least developed countries, Bangladesh is performing well also in new markets such as Japan, South Africa, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and some Latin American countries due to her continuous efforts in product diversification and value addition. About 4.4 million people are working in the sector, of which 75% are women. Currently, around 5 million people are employed in backward and forward linkage industries, and nearly 40 million people depend on this industry for livelihood. It helps the government of Bangladesh a lot in achieving the goal of women entrepreneurs in general and in achieving the target level of MDGs particular. Meantime, the national poverty and level Bangladesh has been reduced significantly with the appropriate innovation of the government. Very recently, our Honorable Prime Minister, Her Excellency Sheikh Hasina, has honored with the South-South Cooperation Visionary Award for the dynamic and visionary leadership in achieving MDGs. In the latest report of the U.S. Green Building Council shows that out of 10 eco-friendly factories of the world, 7 factories is located in Bangladesh. It is a testimony of our sincere efforts and initiative towards making the RMG sector safe, sound, green, environment friendly, and a vibrant one. Currently, we are working on celebrating the golden jubilee of the independence of Bangladesh with the target of earning $50 billion from the apparel sector by the year 2021. In order to maintain this goal, the establishment of high-tech RMJ factories with the latest technologies and equipment is a must. I am hopeful that today's forum will undoubtedly inspire us to march forward in line with our desired target of export growing in RMJ sector. With these few words, I conclude my speech. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Mu. Mr. Truong, can you tell us now about Vietnam and Vinatex, please?
Yes, we come from Vietnam. Vietnam is in Vietnam we have the Association of the Textile and Apparel, and I am also the first vice chairman of the Vietnam National Textile and Apparel Association. In Vietnam, the textile and garment industry is the second largest export industry in Vietnam, with the 2016 export turnover around 28.2 billion US dollars in top 5 of the export countries in textile and garment. We have the main market is US with 40% of our export to US, around 15% to EU, 12% to Japan, and 8% to Korea. Textile and garment is the fastest growing industry in Vietnam during the last 20 years, starting from opening policy in Vietnam from 1990s. And currently, the textile and garment industry in Vietnam using 2.6 million employees. And for Vinatex, Vinatex is the largest company in textile and garment industry in Vietnam. We have, in Vinatex, we have 80 members. And the same is Saritech in Indonesia. We are also a vertical integrated textile industry from the spinning, weaving, knitting, dyeing, finishing, garment, and also fashion design. And inside Vinatex, we also have the University of Textile and one textile and garment research institute. Currently, Vinatex have a turnover last year is close to $4 billion US dollars last year. And we have 160,000 employees inside our company.
Great. Now we know who everybody is. Let's move on to what's happening in this world, in this industry you're with. Textiles, is this, it sounds like a growing business. We're still all wearing clothes, but there must be trends and there must be challenges to your industry. So could we discuss some of those? What is the state of the market now, and what are the big trends and challenges you face? Perhaps I could begin with Mr. Truong and we'll work back down the line again. So, Mr. Truong.
Yeah, I'm working for the industry more than 20 years, from a small company to the CEO of the own group. After 20 years, I think that is the challenge with the textile and garment in Vietnam, and also for other labor-intensive industry. First thing is the living condition in our country increased so much. In last 20 years, the GDP per capita around $300 per year, and then the minimum wage $40. But now it's a minimum wage around close to $200 US dollars.
That's quite a leap.
And then the first challenge is now all the requirement from the employee, from the government, the environmental protection is increased so much compared to last 10 years. But the price in the global market is still unchanged. If sometimes it's the decrease. And then how to keep the company running effectively and still keeping the good financial situation for the garment textile in Vietnam during especially last 5 years is very important. Related to the solution of each company and strategy of each company, how to increase the productivity, how to apply the automation to reduce the number of employee, number of labor we need to pay for each product. Okay. It's a solution on that. And how to integrate to the supply chain to improve the position of the company in the global supply chain. If last 20 years is mostly is a cut make cheap, a CM product. Now how to make the FOB product, how to make the ODM product, it means we're selling the garment product, including the design, technical design and fashion design on that, to increase the added value of Vietnam on that, for cover the expand increase.
Yeah, so but you're looking for big productivity gains. That's where it's
Yes.
Mr. Lukminto, can I ask you now? What about these big global trends you're looking at?
I think it's about the sustainability. I think, but we now currently that actually Indonesia is one of the strategic strategic zone that for making the raw material for textile, basically. That now we heavily invested in the fiber plants, and later we're going to have also staple fiber to rayons, and as well as we also do in the plantations, and for our eucalyptus woods for the raw material for rayons. And beside that is that the trend in the world is globally is that market is getting faster and faster. So speed is very important to fulfill the demands from our customers. And let's say now our big retailers that demand us around 2 weeks lead times from fabrics to garments. So this is that the trend will be like that, and I think we have to be also very efficient in our management, and again, speed is very important.
Speed to market, time to market.
Speed to market, yes.
Yeah. Before I come to Mr. Dieners, let's stay with the production side. Mr. Amu, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
Yes, you see, we have a golden heritage and history of stitching of the finest cloth of the world, the Muslim. It was a famous cloth, and it was in the whole Europe.
Okay.
And this, our women are very expert in stitching the finest cloth, and which ultimately helps us RMG sector to be more competitive in the global competition. And we have already, our labor is cheap there, and we have already minimum wages increased by 223% during the past 5 years. And 5% increment of minimum wage is being followed by the factories. Labor rules are being enforced since September 2015. For that reason, workers are encouraged, and they do much for this production.
Much for that, I can see. Thank you. Mr. Dieners, now from the industry point of view, what are the big challenges there? Where do you see your association come in?
I will give two statements on your question.
Okay.
The first one is, as the mankind is growing, textile business will grow as well.
Because we all need clothes. We all need.
We need it.
Yes.
So no question about if it's nature or synthetic or whatever.
And the fashion industry shows no sign of slowing down.
Clothes. It's only a question: where is it produced? Is it in Asia or in Africa or in Europe or in South America? This is the only question. But for sure, the textile production will rise up. Second thing is, in my mind, that the textile industry have several demands and requirements. On one side, the legal part, which gets stronger and stronger, in China as well, in Europe for sure, and in all other countries, in my mind, as well. Sustainability is very important because we have limited resources. We have not enough water, we have not enough fuel, we have not enough job. So we have to think about how to produce. And this, for me, is the most important question, that we learn from other industries, that we learn even from digitalization, as we have known it the last 2 days here. What can we do in the future? But as you know, textile industry is one of the first industries you start with. First is textile, second is metal. And we have to think about to implement modern production which saves water, which saves energy, and this is a real challenge for this old industry, in my mind.
And some of that vertical integration you were talking about is a way of achieving that sustainability, I suppose. If I can stay with you, sir, for a moment, Mr. Dieners. Wage costs are rising, sustainability issues are there. Many of the industries we're here today and we're talking about, and many of the technologies we're talking about, is automation and how you can use automation and robots to replace jobs. Now, this is an industry which has traditionally been very labour-intensive. Now, I'm not aware of anybody who has yet invented an automated sewing machine. There are bits of your processes which I know are automated or can be automated, and maybe more in the future. But what role will automation play in the textile industry, and could it change the areas and places of manufacture? Mr. Dieners first, and then...
Automation, in my mind, is very important for the textile industry. We have to look back for the sectors. If you talk about sewing, in my mind, we are not ready. Maybe it takes 10 years or whatever. It is very difficult to automate a three-dimension textile in a very proper way.
People are very good with their hands, aren't they? It's a very dexterous
it's
job.
very delicate to sew a jacket like this in an automatic way. I don't believe it right now that it is possible. The other thing, if you look for the finishing, for the treatment of the textiles, automation is very, very important and is one part of a quality system of the manufacturers, because this guarantees that you have every time the same quality. And this is one advantage of automation.
Okay, so you can see it increasing. Mr. Lukminto, what do you think? How is automation playing out for yourself?
I think automation is a must that we develop in the current situations. That it's not only to reduce the labor, actually, but how we accurate to make a good textile and minimize the rejections, so that we still can make it not wasting more water, more chemicals, and also energy, because textile takes a lot of energy basically to make a mirror of a textile. We just do if you can take a look from spinning up to garments, is a lot of redo in this case, and a lot of wasting of energy on the manufacturing. In this part, that we are looking for a different way to make textile, since we are composite now, from spinning to weaving to dyeing, printing, and garments. So we are looking for a different. We make it shortcut to make textile. So this is one thing that what we are doing now. And yes, it's correct. I mean, it's for sewing. It is time for robotics, but for others, for textile, from spinning to dyeing, printing, is the automation is already there, and cost per kilo or cost per meter is relatively went down year by year, and in terms of labor and in terms of chemical consumption or water consumption.
Thank you. Mr. Amu, what do you think of robots? No, Mr. Amu? Sorry, Minister. Robots? Do you have any comment on automation and robots? No? No, you're very wise, I think, on that one. Mr. Truong, come on.
Yes. I think that we have two areas in textile and garment industry. One is textile, and that's one is garment. Textile is a long history of industry, and very close with a new innovation on mechanism or automation. And first, we agree with another speaker is automation play a very important role. First one related to the quality is consistency quality in automation system, less the interfere of the worker on that. Secondly, is the productivity on automation can increase and reduce the cost of labor per each product. And then we can protect the competitive advantage when the minimum wage increase. The third one is automation is not only automation, they also saving energy, saving electricity, saving water during the dyeing, finishing, electricity in spinning. It's very important. For example, is in spinning sector, before 10,000 spindle, they need 100 people for running that. But the state-of-the-art spinning factory now, 10,000 spindle need 20 people.
Really?
5 times less than that. It's play very important role. And also is a pressure for the manufacturer when they need to change the technology, when they need to close their own factory and investment in the new one is very important. Second part is on garment industry. Garment industry currently is labor intensive. Most of the worker in textile and garment is garment.
Yeah.
For example, in my group, 80% of our employee is a garment worker.
So it's actually making the clothes is the most labor-intensive part of this business. Yeah.
And very important that they own the garment company feel the skilled worker is the asset. And the competitive advantage of each company, garment company, is a skilled worker. However, skilled worker, the owner is feel is the asset, but actually very easy to leave the company to join with other. And the owner take a very high risk when we running big company, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 workers. And every time they can leave to change the workplace. And then for the manufacturer, for the owner, they want to reduce the risk by automation. But currently, for the garment, automation still only integrated many steps before in one machine. For example, before is the neck is one machine, and here is the other one machine. Here is a one machine, but now they can integrate it to reduce the number of employees.
Yeah.
But not much, because we have two parts on the garment product. One we call garment product is the standard product everybody use, and the other one is fashion product, change very fast, smaller order size. And for fashion product, very difficult to apply the automation on that, because very quick change.
Yeah. Okay.
But standard product is a trend in the future. Is more automation can apply on that. Even for the time being, it's not much on the automation in the garment sector.
Okay. What I hope to is towards the end open up to some questions from the floor. So do think about some questions, and when we get a little bit towards our end of time, I'll open up for anything that anybody would like to ask. Meantime, you mentioned the inherent skills of the worker being very crucial to your manufacturing processes. And that gives you, particularly as producers, competitive advantages. But how do you maintain that in a world? I mean, traditionally, the textile industry and the garment industry has been a way for a country to industrialize, especially a country with with a large workforce. To enter the textile business has been a way to come into industry, to industrialize and to produce exports. Is it still an entry point, or has that ship sailed? I mean, can you see new competitors coming in other countries, and could they challenge your competitive advantages? Let me start first with Mr. Lukminto. I'll ask you, how do you feel about that? I mean, is textiles do you feel threatened that another country may come along with lower wage costs and try and steal your business away?
I think it's textile. I personally don't threaten of the trends, and the market is being developed by each country. And if we see on the retail sectors, they don't want to focus on one country. They are spread out the risk to different countries, what they are making now. Especially the big retailers, let's say H&M and Zara and you name it, Uniqlo, stuff like that. And this is the retailers also wants to have diversifications of countries. I think one to another one country has their own advantage. Yeah, so we don't see the threaten on that.
Okay.
I have a question on that. Is it a question of the country, or is it a question of the manufacturers? So the retailers go to a different country, or do the retailers go to those manufacturers which are producing in a automatically or sustainability modern and actual way?
If in the may I share the view on that? If it's the same base of tax rule of origin, the buyer will be go with the manufacturer. They consider on the advantage of each manufacturer. But because of in the global garment and textile market, you have a different tax between the country to EU, country to US. And the buyer need to consider both tax reduction, how many percent on that, and the price and competitive advantage of each manufacturer.
So it's even a question about the tax, how many tax I have to pay.
Different country, different level. If from Indonesia to, for example, from Bangladesh to EU, it's very low because the EU apply the special level for Bangladesh.
Okay.
But for Vietnam, Indonesia, higher. Yeah.
So there are financial and fiscal reasons as well that will impede on where production goes, not just technology and wage costs alone. However, I mean, we mentioned Zara here. This is a fast fashion company. Recently, I wrote a piece about Adidas, who are opening a factory in Germany soon to make 500,000 pairs of trainers a year using largely robots and additive manufacturing, and it's only going to employ 200 people. So that you're seeing some production and some competitive change coming there. And that's nothing to do with wage costs. They said that's just time to market. They just want the supply chains are too long. But that won't make much dent in the 20-odd million trainers that they make. So what I'm feeling towards is there anything in the textile and garment business where you may see moves towards fast fashion to shorten the time to market and shorten the supply chains? What can you actually do there? Mr. Dieners, I'll start with you again if I could. You know, what can be done to, because there is a physical limit of where your production is and where the shops are.
I'm still thinking about the question of the decision of the retailers and brands where to place the orders. If you look to the last activities of Greenpeace, for example, and the detox catalog, I think one aspect we have to add, the aspect that the manufacturers has to produce the garments and the textile in commitment with the detox requirements. And therefore you have to be very, very modern. You have to be, in that way we are discussing right now, of a sustainability production, of a modern automatically production, because these are all these stones you need to fulfill the requirements. And in my mind, in future, it gets much more important that we look on the environmental aspects, less than to the country taxes or cost aspects. And we will see it very soon, in my mind, because I know that in Germany, the both biggest retailers, Aldi and Lidl, will only accept those manufacturers who fulfills the requirements of detox. So this is a very new discussion then.
So sustainability of manufacturing is going to be, and the green credentials of manufacturing are going to be the pretty big deciding factors for the retailers and because of consumers' pressure as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Mr. Truong, what do you think of that?
I think that when the buyers selecting the short list of supplier, they not rely on one or two supplier. They have a short list of that.
Okay.
When they're doing assessment, they have a criteria for assessment on the production, the technology, the management, speed to the market.
Yeah.
But the big buyer in the world, they have some advantage economic of scale. For example, Zara, as I know.
Mm-hmm.
Zara is a big quantity of order. And normally, all the supplier in the supply chain, not every time make the order, they have a stock.
Yeah.
At least they stock a gray yarn. Gray yarn is standard. And then they can stock the gray fabric, also standard on weaving.
Okay. So
And they only dyeing the color Zara one
Okay.
and save the time.
Okay.
And then go to garment. It's the reason why now speed to the market. Sometimes it's 30 days, 40 days. Before it's 70, 90 days.
So
Why the supplier can comply with the requirement from buyer? Because of they have the commitment together about the quantity of the year, and they reduce for stock many steps on the supply chain to reduce that.
So you could produce a basic product and
Yes,
customize it
yes.
for the market, closer to the market, and do it that way.
This is the reason why even Zara, 70% of their product is a standard product.
Yeah.
And
This-
that's the one efficient, they can pay higher for the supplier, can pay more attention on that, can doing the small order side with the surcharge on that.
So the small
speak to
order
the
side,
market.
the really fast fashion stuff, the short range, short limited stuff, that's done locally.
Yes,
But the vast majority of that business, as you say, is still produced
Yeah.
in factories like
Yeah,
yourselves.
it is the reason why in the supply chain now you need a very high commitment between each step of supply chain.
Yeah. And that's true for you, Mr. Lukminto, is it as well?
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree that.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have any questions, by the way? Sir, please. There is a microphone coming down to you now.
My name is Dausha from Brazil. You said that you cannot imagine, because of the complexity of the clothes, that in the future you can, let's say, print out at home what you want, what you designed locally. But I want to know a little about this. I think it's not new, but how it works with this mass customization. Is this still possible? Is it commercial available? What is the tendency to make that you can order your, let's say, it's fast fashion clothes, but with specifics of what you like, the color or some design or something like this. What is the tendency in this direction? Because I think it's also complicated to do this in the factory.
So that's how far can you take bespoke Savile Row type clothing to mass production standards? Over to you.
Okay.
Would like to start?
I really don't know if I'm really able to answer that. But in my mind, look at Nike. They show us how to do it. And I'm convinced, as Zara is doing it, they use, for sure, for the fabrics, standard materials. And the clue of this concept is that you can choose your colors. You can choose your design, which can be designed at your computer at home. And then it will be sewed by, as today, with human beings. So it is more or less, in my mind, a logistic concept. It's not a production concept. Yeah.
Very interesting. Mr. Truong, have you got an answer? Oh, another question up there, please.
Hello, my name is Mohammed Mahmoud from the American University of Sharjah, UAE. So my question is for the panel in general. but specifically as a reply or a question on what Mr. Tien Truong said. You mentioned something about that automation of the textile industry would reduce the amount of labor required, right? But wouldn't that reduce the amount of jobs on the market available? And wouldn't that be a little bit fear-mongering? So,
Actually, is when we apply the automation, is we apply on the spinning and weaving. That part in textile and garment industry is not using much people. More than 80%, 90% of the employee in garment textile industry in the garment sector. Textile is not much. And secondly, for Vietnam, the textile and garment industry is the increasing, growing industry. We still investment new factory for expansion the capacity. And we selecting the strategy is new investment should be more automation, reduce the number of employee per each factory. And then we increase less job compared to previous technology. However, new factory have the competitive advantage. They can running well, they can have the profit in the future. If we continue with no automation model, we'll be facing the problem is we have a cost higher than other. We have a risk on the skilled labor. We difficulty for recruitment, training the skilled labor, and also difficulty for remaining them with us on the factory. And as the manufacturer, as the owner of the factory, we need to reduce the risk. And we pay more the money on the fixed asset. It's easier for control the factory. And the quality is different. And we worry about if we not apply the automation, not investment the new technology on the factory, our product will be not meet the requirement of the buyer in the future.
Interesting. Mr. Lukminto?
I think to see the whole textile and garments business in global market, that the demand also is growing up basically. That people are spending clothing compared to before. Yes, of course, is more than I think it's double, I believe, at this moment. And the trends, the fashion trends, is getting faster and faster. And of course, the job creation also is there. Each country, there is still a chance, an opportunity to grow with the textile and garments, since we're still wearing clothes. Yeah. And of course, that the important in this textile, how we make efficient and make the sustainable textile for supplying the market. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Dieners, is there anything you'd like to add?
To come back to your question, as we have the same opinion that in sewing there's no automation yet possible, maybe in future, but up to now, if you look for 5 years, I don't think so. What is very important in the textile supply chain is the wet processes. Wet processes means we are talking about washing, dyeing, printing. And automation in that regard means that you know what you are doing. So you count your water, you count your energy consumption. And you look for same treatments. And this is, in my mind, the automation we are talking of. That you do every time the same thing. And therefore you need a computer which steers everything. You put in your reset number, and then automatically everything is steered by the automation. the water input, chemical input, the temperature. And this you found in every modern manufacturing plant. And this is automation, and this, in my mind, will not cost any employment.
So that's where you get a consistency, a standardization, and presumably a certification process as well. You were talking about consumers and buyers wanting to see certain things about sustainability and recycling ability and all these issues.
That's the base of all.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the base of all, even to get a certification, because we as a certifying system, we want to see that in quality aspects, everything is going in the right direction in every time. So this is our request. And if we saw a dyeing house where everything is handled by hand, temperature, the amount of water, it's not possible to produce the same quality. And therefore, it's not possible to certify, because we cannot guarantee that the quality and the output of this production is good and is healthy, because we test it for harmful substances. And this is very important. This is the base for us to certify.
And that's presumably the rest of you gentlemen, is that you see that as a future?
I'm just sharing my experience on that. 1997, dyeing of the polyester fiber, polyester yarn, take 2.5 hours. But 2007, only 1.5 hours. It's a change in technology, change in the automation of the dyeing machine. And they save 40% of dyeing time. It means increase 40% of productivity of one factory. It's very important on that.
And there's presumably a long way to go down that line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very important.
This is based on chemical, on new chemicals,
Yes.
and new machine technology.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, we've come up against our time there. I'd like to very much thank there Mr. Dieners, Mr. Lukminto, our Minister, Mr. Abu, and Mr. Truong. Please join me in a round of applause for our very expert panel here. Thank you very much.